Capitalism is an economic system in which private individuals or businesses own capital goods. At the same time, business owners, capitalists, employ workers, labor, who receive only wages. Labor doesn't own the means of production, but instead uses them on behalf of the owners of capital. Capitalism. In a market economy, also known as capitalism, the production, distribution, and consumption of goods and services are guided by private ownership of businesses and the free market. Prices are determined by supply and demand, with businesses competing for customers. The United States is an example of a market economy. Socialism is an economic system in which major industries are owned by the workers rather than by private businesses or the state. It is different from capitalism, where private actors, like business owners and shareholders, can own the means of production. The state can also act as a capitalist by owning the means of production and by directing the economy. Socialists believe that capitalists owning the means of production is a form of exploitation because it lets them own a majority of the labor that workers produce, even though the owners haven't done any work. Mixed economy. A mixed economy is a combination of a market economy and a command economy. The government plays a role in regulating the economy, but businesses are also free to operate in the market. Most countries in the world today have mixed economies. The United States, for example, has a mixed economy in which the government provides public goods and services such as roads and education, but also allows businesses to operate freely. In a command economy, the government controls the production, distribution, and consumption of goods and services. The government decides what goods and services will be produced, how much will be produced, and at what prices they will be sold. The former Soviet Union is an example of a command economy. The main alternative to a command economy is a free market system, in which supply and demand dictate production and prices. Communism is an economic ideology that advocates for a classless society in which all property and wealth are communally owned, instead of being owned by individuals. In a communist economy, the government owns and controls all property and resources. There is no private ownership of businesses in a communist economy. Communist economies are based on the idea that all people are equal and that everyone should share in the wealth of the country. The Soviet Union was an example of a communist economy. A traditional economy is a system that relies on customs, history, and time-honored beliefs. Tradition guides economic decisions such as production and distribution. Societies with traditional economies depend on agriculture, fishing, hunting, gathering, or some combination of them. In a traditional economy, goods and services are produced and distributed based on customs and traditions. There is little or no government intervention in the economy. Traditional economies are often found in small, isolated communities. Barter is an act of trading goods or services between two or more parties without the use of money, or a monetary medium such as a credit card. In essence, bartering involves the provision of one good or service by one party in return for another good or service from another party. An example of a barter arrangement is a carpenter who builds a fence for a farmer. Instead of the farmer paying the builder $1,000 in cash for labor and materials, the farmer could instead recompense the carpenter with $1,000 worth of crops or foodstuffs. It is the oldest form of commerce. Feudalism was a system by which a sovereign divided portions of his land among his vassals in exchange for certain services, quite often those of military value. These lords might then further divide the land among lesser lords under similar agreements, who may, again, divide the land. This created a hierarchy among European nobility and a system of titles representing one's position among this hierarchy. A king might grant large swaths of land to dukes, who then would divide these holdings among a number of earls or counts, who would then divide this among a number of barons. Social market economy. A social market economy is a type of mixed economy that combines elements of a market economy with a social welfare system. Social market economies are designed to promote economic efficiency and social justice. Germany is an example of a social market economy. Islamic economy. Islamic economics is a system of economic principles based on Islamic law, Sharia. Islamic economics emphasizes social justice, fair trade, and the prohibition of usury, charging interest on loans. There is no one Islamic economic model, but Islamic economic principles can be applied to a variety of economic systems. Mercantilism was an economic system of trade that spanned the 16th century to the 18th century. Mercantilism was based on the principle that the world's wealth was static, and consequently, governments had to regulate trade to build their wealth and national power. Many European nations attempted to accumulate the largest possible share of that wealth by maximizing their exports and limiting their imports via tariffs. Keynesianism. Keynesianism is a macroeconomic theory of total spending in the economy and its effects on output, employment, and inflation. It was developed by British economist John Maynard Keynes during the 1930s in an attempt to understand the Great Depression. The central belief of Keynesian economics is that government intervention can stabilize the economy. Keynesianism was widely adopted by governments in the 20th century, but it has come under criticism in recent years. Monetarism. Monetarism is a macroeconomic theory that emphasizes the role of the money supply in determining inflation and economic growth. Monetarism was developed by Milton Friedman and other economists in the 1950s and 1960s. It has been influential in shaping monetary policy in many countries. Monetarism. Monetarism is a macroeconomic theory that emphasizes the role of the money supply in determining inflation and economic growth. Monetarism was developed by Milton Friedman and other economists in the 1950s and 1960s. It has been influential in shaping monetary policy in many countries. Monetarism is closely associated with economist Milton Friedman, who argued that the government should keep the money supply fairly steady, expanding it slightly each year mainly to allow for the natural growth of the economy. Cooperative economy. A cooperative economy is a system of economic organization based on the principles of cooperation and mutuality. Cooperatives are businesses that are owned and controlled by their members, who share the profits and losses of the business. Cooperatives can be found in a variety of industries, including agriculture, banking, and housing. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe for more content like this.